What's up, my alphas? Today I'm going to talk to you about the overhand, and I'm going to talk to you about what the overhand is, how to do it, and why it's so effective as a tool to knock people out. The overhand is like my favorite punch because it has a whole history of usage that's more recent in times of fighting, because really not too many fighters were using it before the 2000s, and there was a whole wave of history of how it came from Russian fighters using the overhand, people seeing it actually works and using that to generate power, and pretty soon you would see people left and right, and sooner rather than later people started using overhands in mixed martial arts specifically. It's a tool that's taught in mixed martial arts gyms, and today even in boxing gyms it's not really typically taught in boxing gyms. The overhand is way more powerful than a straight right or straight left. Say you're coming from here with a straight right. If you come over the top, you get way more power generated as you're torquing your foot and turning your foot on the ground to get a lot of power. To get a lot of power into that overhand, you're torquing your foot, which is like key to being able to throw an overhand. And why is this more powerful of a punch than like a straight right or straight left? Like you've seen Manny Pacquiao just do straight lefts all day long and knock people down, knock people out. And you've seen fighters use the straights in general, and that's been the thing in boxing, but now it's overhands. If you have like a keen eye, you'll notice pretty much the biggest knockouts in boxing are overhands, and in mixed martial arts, when it's standing, it's almost always overhands when they're knocking people out. So when you throw an overhand, it's basically something your body's been evolved to do. Not going into the evolution part, but just being able to throw objects like spears is similar to the motion of throwing an overhand. It's like basically like pitching a ball. When you pitch a ball, it's the same thing. You're using your whole back muscle back here to throw the ball. Same thing to throw like a spear if you were throwing a spear, which is what our hominid ancestors did. They threw spears, they used bow and arrows, and they also just used spears to stab at prey that they wanted to eat. And so it's part of the reason our back muscles, the latissimus dorsi, is the second largest muscle in the body. And so that works into why overhands are the strongest movement and strongest punch you could do when you're boxing, doing mixed martial arts and striking.
So it pretty much began with Igor Vovchanchin, and everybody saw him just knocking out people that are way bigger than him, almost 2 times the weight size of him, knocking people out cold, and just hitting people so hard they'd fall back and get knocked out too, just from the concussive hits of overhands and looping punches. And his overhands were very powerful. He's like actually a very small guy, like 5'7" or 5'8", but he fought in the heavyweight division, and he was just able to just swarm people with punches and destroy them, because most people again weren't using overhands. So when they got clocked with an overhand, just short overhands like that one, leading into combos, it's just like, man, it just takes everything out of somebody and they're just knocked out silly and cold. And really, if any normal person learns an overhand, that's the key punch that will give them a knockout pretty easily over anybody else. That's why you see Igor here knocking out people way bigger than him and they don't know what hit them, or just even if they block it, they get knocked over when he gets thrown to those overhands. So in another example today, like Jake Paul, social media superstar, he's knocked out many people with his overhand. He knocked out Tyrone Woodley, a former mixed martial artist, UFC champion also too, with an overhand people don't realize. Same thing when Jake Paul knocked out Anderson Silva. I remember being in a bar watching it in Skokie, Illinois, and it was definitely another fight where Jake Paul utilized his overhand. And he's getting crapped here because, people realize, the smarter fighters, that they're throwing overhand so they could block him nowadays. But Jake Paul was able to beat one of the most highly regarded mixed martial artists in the world, Anderson Silva, who's considered to be the best mixed martial artist of all time by many people. Not myself included. I don't think anyone's ever the best fighter in anything or best artist or whatever. People always contribute to the art form. But Anderson Silva is definitely one of the legends and one of the best ever, if not the best for some people who think so. So yeah, Igor definitely was the guy who brought forth overhands and looping punches, where people, especially when they're close to that place, he's Ukrainian actually, but Ukraine was part of Russia before. So the next guy that would come along, Fedor Emelianenko, also had a heat seeker of a missile in an overhand right also. So he was no doubt looking at Igor saying like, oh, what's this guy doing? Because when you're, physically similar, a lot of times you get influenced by people. Like how I used to be influenced by DJ Qbert. I used to battle with DJing and all that. And that's how I got into DJing, really. I was watching this Filipino guy, Qbert, destroy everybody and be one of the best DJs and legends of the DJ battling thing. So yeah, Igor definitely influenced Fedor and a lot of Russian fighters because they would always throw overhands. But nowadays, pretty much everybody has been influenced somehow by Igor because he's the guy that brought overhands into mixed martial arts, really, in my mind. Of course, there's other people that have been thrown overhands as well, There's people like Manny Pacquiao and boxers that have always known about overhands, but they don't throw them as much as like Igor did. He knew it was a heat seeker weapon. Even back in these days, like, again, he's fought from like the 90s, 95 to 2005, and here he is in like a barroom setting where it's just straight up bare knuckles, when it used to be called NHB, no holds barred, and people just fought with like their bodies, that's it. No gloves, hardly any rules. No one could really save you but the ref. And yeah, people would get seriously injured and maimed, but you know, there were some tough guys back then like Igor who would just step in the cage and just fight you. It's not a sport like it wasn't a sport like it is today. They just straight up fought people. And you know, you break your knuckles on people's heads all day long when you hit him, but Igor, when he's been training in his overhand so much, you know, you're gonna get hard knuckles. You're gonna develop like a hardness to your knuckles. So, because again, overhands are very powerful. They're more powerful than a straight right or straight left, like almost 2 times more powerful. I feel it in my punch when I hit a punching bag. So it's not to be underestimated. That's why I made this video. People don't really understand how powerful an overhand is, but until they get hit by it, or if they learn how to do it and they realize, whoa, this overhand punch is way more powerful. You see here, he didn't even really hit him flush, but just the torque and pivot of his overhand to hit somebody, he could just, you know, throw somebody right over because they're dizzied up by it. If you don't know how to block an overhand, or if it's your first time blocking an overhand, you will get thrown on your side and beat up. You'll lose your balance. So there he is, older, you know, Igor Vovchanchyn. He's really not a big guy at all. Like most of these other people in the pictures are bigger than him. Like I said, he's like 5'7", 5'8", fighting in the heavyweight division, knocking out people 2 times his size. And that's pretty much what Igor brought to the mixed martial arts and boxing world. He like really brought light to using overhands. And there's no doubt I'm not the only one out there who saw Igor do it and started training in overhands themselves, whether it's over the top or throwing to the side, because there's 2 real ways to throw them. So here's Fedor Emelianenko, and you'll see he throws the heat seekers too. One of his first punches here, I believe he just throws the overhand in one of his biggest super fights versus Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira. Yeah, there it is, the overhand. And Rodrigo got hit by it, and he's already dizzied up by it because he doesn't know it hit him, basically. You gotta understand, like back then, people don't really know what an overhand is. They know it's like a haymaker. So the thing with Fedor was like he could do ground and pound with overhand motions, and that's why he would destroy people with ground and pound. See him looping those punches, it's pretty much like overhands on the ground getting pounded. So it's very effective. Also, if you get on top of somebody, to be able to use the same kind of torque in your hips, because you're obviously not able to pivot with your foot on the ground, but you can still torque in your hips and throw the punches from all the way back like an overhand still. And that's way more powerful than throwing just kind of pity patter punches in somebody's guard like he is here with Nogueira, the open guard right now, or closed guard. You pretty much just bang someone up with those punches. And that's what Fedor would do. He'd just destroy people with ground and pound because he'd throw these monstrous looping punches. So this fight was definitely like a legendary fight because at the time they were both in their prime. Nogueira, obviously one of the better jiu-jitsu guys, so he rolled Fedor there and Fedor rolls him. Just continues with his looping punches and straight power that comes from the overhand. And of course, we all know Manny Pacquiao had one of the most amazing overhand punches. He throws it from the side, boom, nails Ricky Hatton, and he fell right onto that Monster energy drink or whatever it is, energy drink sign, perfectly. And that was an overhand by Manny Pacquiao, how he throws it. He likes to throw it with kind of like a hooking motion, but it is still an overhand. So again, it's like that throwing motion of like a spear or like a pitch coming from all the way back, like pivoting off your foot versus a straight right. There is a pivot, but it's just straight from where you're at, kind of. The punch comes out where you're at. And so you see the concussive damage of an overhand there. And around this time period when Pacquiao fought Hatton, it's really kind of where, you know, people really started noticing overhands again, because this guy, Pacquiao, had his highlight reel knockout, and you know, people started in boxing having knockouts with the overhand and just knocking people silly unconscious. And it's pretty impressive when someone gets knocked out unconscious to the common people who don't really know fighting and boxing. But when you're a fighter and you train in mixed martial arts and boxing, you start realizing the details, and it's all in the details, like any artist knows in any art form, whether it's doing arts, drawing, painting, or knocking somebody out and fighting or making music. It's always in the details, and the little detail is like those overhands can knock people silly. It has such concussive damage that you knock people out completely cold compared to straight rights and straight lefts. And could you knock people down with those? Of course you still can and still do see knockouts with straight rights, straight lefts, hooks and all that, but really at the end of the day, like nothing's more impressive to a regular person than an overhand. Now to me nowadays it really isn't as impressive because anybody could throw an overhand. no matter who you are, you could learn how to throw the overhand because it's in our evolved genes to be able to throw things. Like that's why people could throw a ball, football or baseball, and in general, people could learn how to throw an overhand punch because it's similar to spear throwing, what we used to do for hundreds of thousands of years, what our ancestors used to do. So the overhand is something powerful. You got to check it out and learn more about it. And I'm glad I was able to teach you about the overhand today. Any questions or comments, leave them below. Like and subscribe.
What's up? I'm John Paul, and today we're going to go over the overhand. Shoot. My bad.